I'll be late. Don't bother calling. I've met someone who finally gets me. I read the words from Ethan over and over on my phone's screen, standing in the stark light of the hospital break room after a brutal 12-hour shift. My scrubs felt clammy, a grim reminder of the CPR I'd performed on a patient we couldn't save. The hands that were steady enough to restart a human heart were now trembling as they held my phone. 12 years of marriage, and he decided these 19 words were all it was worth. He couldn't even dignify it with a phone call. I put down my untouched cup of coffee and typed my reply, my fingers moving with a strange sense of calm. Fine. Stay with her. Don't bother coming home. Before this story goes any further, if you've ever felt invisible in your own relationship, I'd love it if you'd subscribe. It costs nothing, and it helps our community grow, connecting more people who need to hear they aren't going through this alone. The fluorescent lights of the break room hummed a monotonous tune above me. On the counter, a leftover birthday cake sat in a slightly crushed box, its cheerful blue frosting beginning to sweat under the harsh glare. "Happy birthday, Jason," the icing read. The irony felt like a punch to the gut. Here I was watching my own marriage die right next to the remnants of someone else's joy. But the strangest part was, I didn't break down. I didn't feel a single tear. There was no urge to scream or hurl my phone against the nearest wall like you see in the movies. Instead, I walked over to the sink, turned the hot water on full blast, and just washed my hands, watching the grime and the exhaustion of the day swirl down the drain. Mr. Henderson didn't pull through his surgery, and neither did my marriage. But at least Mr. Henderson had put up a fight. Just last Sunday, only 4 days ago, I'd made Ethan's coffee just the way he liked it. One Splenda, a splash of almond milk, in that oversized mug he got from a tech conference in Austin. He was sitting at our kitchen island, his thumb doing that mindless, repetitive scroll on his phone, a motion I knew better than my own heartbeat. When I placed the mug next to him, he tilted his head up for our habitual morning kiss. It was pure muscle memory, nothing more. His lips were dry, his mind already a million miles away. "Got an emergency client meeting," he'd mumbled, his eyes never leaving the screen. "Might be late." I'd had the urge to ask what kind of client has an emergency on a Sunday morning, but I just nodded and watched him walk out the door, his wedding band sitting on the granite countertop where he'd left it. It was the third time that week. "It gets in the way of my typing," he'd once explained, showing me the faint white line on his finger as if it were proof of his tireless work ethic. Brenda, my charge nurse, peeked her head into the break room. "Clara, you okay? You've been in here for almost half an hour." Half an hour. I'd been standing at this sink for 30 minutes, reading and rereading those 19 words, a morbid kind of symmetry. "I'm fine," I said, my voice sounding distant as I dried my hands on the coarse paper towels, leaving my skin feeling raw. Just needed a second. She looked at me with that sharp intuition all seasoned nurses have, that uncanny ability to see the pain a person is trying to conceal. "Take all the time you need. We've got the floor covered." The truth is, I'd felt this coming for what felt like ages. It started with little things. He stopped asking how my day was. He didn't notice when I picked up double shifts. He started talking about Isabel from his finance firm, mentioning her in that deliberately casual way people do when they're desperately trying to sound uninterested. He'd said she made him feel like someone other than just an exhausted nurse. But during that whole dinner, he was glued to his phone, his face glowing in the blue light, smiling at texts I wasn't meant to see. "Who's that?" I'd asked, trying to keep my voice light. "Isabel," congratulating me on the deal. "She really gets how hard I've been working. She gets it, she understands." Those words had felt like tiny shards of glass embedding themselves in my chest. When did I stop understanding him? Or was it that he just stopped letting me in? I took my phone out again, scrolling back through our recent texts. It was a wasteland of logistical exchanges, grocery lists, reminders about bills. His messages had grown shorter and shorter over the past few months, while mine had become more and more desperate. The last time we had anything resembling a real conversation via text was a month ago, when I sent him a picture from our trip to the Rockies 7 years back. "Remember this sunset?" I'd typed. He replied with a single thumbs-up emoji, a thumbs up for 7 years of shared history. Our friends thought we were the perfect couple. My own mother called us her favorite lovebirds, which felt especially cruel since I was her only daughter. Just last month at my book club, my friend Susan had sighed and said, "You're so lucky Ethan is so devoted. My husband hasn't planned a date in what feels like a decade." I just smiled and took a sip of my wine, not telling her that Ethan hadn't planned anything for us either, that our last date night was me, eating takeout by myself while he worked late, that I'd started volunteering for night shifts just to escape the deafening silence of our apartment. The break room door creaked open again. This time, it was Diana from the pediatric wing, grabbing her lunch out of the fridge. "Tough night?" she asked, her eyes catching the look on my face. "Mr. Henderson didn't make it," I said. It was true, but it wasn't the whole truth. She gave my shoulder a gentle squeeze. "I'm so sorry. It never gets any easier, does it?" "No, it doesn't. Death is never easy. Not the sudden, shocking kind, and not the slow, creeping kind you see coming from a mile away. Not in the cardiac unit, and not in a marriage that flatlines while you're still desperately trying to resuscitate it." I glanced at my phone one last time. No follow-up text. No, I didn't mean it. No, we need to talk. Just those 19 words hanging in the air between us like a terminal diagnosis that no one wanted to say out loud. Inoperable. Nothing left to do. The coffee I'd abandoned was cold now, a thin film forming on the surface. I poured it down the sink and watched it spiral into nothing. 12 years, over 4,000 days, and it all came to an end with a text message he sent while I was busy trying to save someone else's life. I walked back out to the floor, my sneakers squeaking on the linoleum, the familiar chaotic rhythm of the cardiac unit, a strange comfort. Monitors beeped, ventilators whooshed, hearts fought to keep beating. Mine had already stopped. I just hadn't been willing to admit it until tonight. The rest of my shift was a blur of controlled chaos. Mrs. Navarro in room 302 went into cardiac arrest at 11:30. Her family had been arguing with us all day about her DNR, insisting their mother was a fighter who would want us to do everything, even though the paperwork she'd signed said the opposite. I was doing compressions on her fragile chest, feeling the sickening crack of ribs under my hands as her daughter screamed at me to try harder. We got a pulse back after 18 minutes. She held on for another hour before she coded again. The second time, her son grabbed my arm, his grip surprisingly strong. "You're not trying hard enough. You gave up on her." I wanted to tell him that sometimes trying harder means having the wisdom to know when to stop, that his mother's heart was exhausted, that she was ready even if he wasn't. Instead, I gently pried his hand off my arm and called for security. They escorted him to the family waiting room while his mother passed away for the third and final time, quietly, without an audience. By the time I got back to the break room at 9 that night, my scrubs looked like I'd walked through a war zone. A line of blood from Mrs. Navarro's arterial line had sprayed across my chest when it became dislodged during compressions. My feet throbbed inside my worn-out sneakers. My lower back was a tight knot of pain from hours of bending over hospital beds, adjusting monitors and holding hands. I knew what was coming. Brenda had been watching me for weeks, taking note of every extra shift I volunteered for, every holiday I offered to cover, every weekend I spent here instead of at home. "You've worked 6 double shifts this month, Clara," she said, her voice soft but firm. "That's not sustainable. I'm fine. I need the money. We're saving for—" I trailed off. What exactly were we saving for? The trip to Italy Ethan kept pushing back? The bigger house he claimed we couldn't afford, even after his big promotion? "Honey, I've been a nurse for 25 years, Brenda said. "I know when someone is running from something." I tried to laugh, but it came out as a hollow croak. "Running? I can barely walk after today." She didn't crack a smile. "Is everything okay at home?" The question hung in the air between us. 3 months ago, I would have answered with an automatic yes. 2 months ago, I might have hesitated. But tonight, standing there, splattered in someone else's blood, I was a little bit. I was exhausted. So exhausted, I couldn't even muster the energy to pretend anymore. I should go check on my patients, I mumbled, trying to escape. Brenda's hand on my shoulder stopped me. The offer's always open, if you ever need to talk. If you ever? I just nodded and retreated to the empty break room, the only sound being the constant low hum of the vending machine. I collapsed into a hard plastic chair and pulled out my phone, intending to text Ethan that I'd be late, and that's when I saw it. His message, sent just 3 minutes earlier. I'll be late. Don't bother calling. I've met someone who finally gets me. The words didn't sink in at first. I read them clinically, dispassionately, like I was reading a patient's chart or a lab result. Then my brain finally caught up, and each word detonated one by one. Met someone who finally gets me. The vending machine's hum seemed to grow louder, or maybe it was just the sound of blood rushing in my ears. The fluorescent light above me flickered, sending shadows dancing across the scuffed linoleum floor. Someone had left a medical journal open on the table, displaying an article on cardiac arrhythmias. The irony of reading about irregular heartbeats, while my own felt like it had forgotten its rhythm, wasn't lost on me. My hands didn't shake when I typed my reply. That was the most surprising part. These same hands that had trembled while trying to save Mrs. Navarro, that had shaken when her son accused me of not caring, were perfectly steady as I wrote the words. Fine. Stay with her. Don't bother coming home. I hit send and placed the phone face down on the table. The vending machine kept up its mechanical breathing, like a ventilator keeping something alive that should have been allowed to die with dignity long ago. I stood up and walked to the restroom, catching my reflection in the unforgiving mirror, blood on my scrubs, dark circles under my eyes, strands of hair escaping the messy bun I'd thrown it into at 6 that morning. But my face was calm, resolute, like I had just made a life or death medical decision that everyone else was too emotional to see clearly. Back in the break room, I powered my phone off completely and tossed it into my locker. Then I walked back out onto the floor. "Everything okay?" Diana asked as she passed me in the hall. "Perfect," I said. And for the first time in a long time, I actually meant it. The next 3 hours should have been excruciating. Instead, they flew by with a strange, crystalline clarity. I updated patient charts with an unprecedented level of focus. I administered medications with an almost Zen-like precision. When Mr. Patterson in 308 complained about his pain medication, I adjusted his dosage without the usual internal debate about whether he was drug-seeking. When the new nursing student fumbled an IV insertion, I gently guided her hands with a patience I didn't know I possessed. At midnight, Brenda found me reorganizing the supply closet. "What on earth are you doing?" "Inventory," I said. "The morning shift is always complaining they can't find anything." She leaned against the door frame, her arms crossed. "You've been different tonight, Clara." Calmer. "Which frankly terrifies me more than if you were falling apart." I lined up a row of gauze boxes with military precision. Maybe I finally figured something out. "Care to share with the rest of the class?" I turned and faced her. "You know what the hardest part of this job is? It's not the death. It's not the families who yell at us. It's not even the 12-hour shifts. It's going home to someone who has no idea why we do this, who doesn't understand why we stay late to hold a stranger's hand, why we cry in our cars after we lose a patient, why we keep coming back day after day even when it's breaking us." Brenda's expression softened into one of deep understanding. "Oh, honey, I'm not looking for sympathy," I said, turning back to the supplies. "I'm just saying, I finally get it. You can't force someone to understand you. They either do or they don't. And if they don't..." I shrugged. "Well, trying to force it is like doing CPR on someone who's been down for an hour. You're just breaking ribs for no reason." She watched me work for another minute. "You need to go home." After I finish inventory. "Clara, I'll leave at 1, I promise." She left, but not without giving my shoulder another one of those comforting squeezes. That small, silent gesture of understanding meant more to me in that moment than 12 years of Ethan asking, "How was your day?" without ever actually listening to the answer. At 12:45, I finished the closet. Every single item was in its proper place, every label faced forward. I had created order out of chaos, exerted control where I could find it. I changed out of my bloodstained scrubs in the locker room, stuffing them into a biohazard bag with a strange sense of satisfaction. The blood wasn't mine. The pain wasn't mine. For once, the tragedy belonged to someone else. My phone remained off, locked away in my locker. Whatever messages were piling up could wait. Forever, for all I cared. The parking garage elevator smelled of stale cigarette smoke and regret. I clutched my bag, still wearing my hospital sneakers that squeaked on the metal floor, and watched the numbers descend. P1, P2, P3. My car was exactly where I'd left it 14 hours ago, back when I was still married, back when I was still pretending. The engine sputtered, then turned over on the third try. I should have had it serviced weeks ago, but Ethan always handled the cars. Just one more thing I'd have to figure out on my own. The thought should have terrified me. Instead, I felt a strange thrill, like I'd just been handed a permission slip to reinvent myself. Denver at midnight looked different when you were driving toward an unknown future instead of a familiar home. The streets glistened from an earlier rain, the neon signs of Colfax Avenue reflecting in the puddles like smeared watercolors. I drove past the little coffee shop where Ethan and I had our first date, the tattered cover bookstore where we used to spend Sunday afternoons before Sundays became his permanent workday, the bar where we'd celebrated our last anniversary 6 months ago. He'd left early that night to handle a work crisis. Of course he had. The 24-hour King Soopers appeared like a fluorescent oasis in the dark. I parked crookedly, taking up 2 spaces, just because I could. Because there was no one in the passenger seat to comment on my terrible parking. Because tiny acts of rebellion felt vital tonight. The harsh lighting inside made everyone look a little sick, or maybe that was just me catching my own reflection in the automatic doors. I grabbed a shopping cart, even though I only needed a couple of things. The expensive Cabernet we'd been saving for a special occasion was on the top shelf, dusty and patient. $48 for a bottle of wine would have seemed insane 6 hours ago. Now, it felt like a bargain for a celebration of my own independence. The ice cream aisle stretched out before me like a frozen land of promise. Ethan hated mint chocolate chip. He said it tasted like toothpaste. I grabbed 2 pints. Then I grabbed the coffee-flavored ice cream he always said was too bitter, and the strawberry cheesecake he deemed too sweet. My cart slowly became a monument to all the little things I'd given up in the name of compromise. The cashier, a kid with gauge earrings and eyes that looked as tired as I felt, scanned my items without a word. "Long night?" he asked. "The best kind," I said, surprising both of us. The drive to our apartment, my apartment, I corrected myself mentally, took exactly 12 minutes. I counted every one. I was acutely aware that this was the last time I would make this drive as a married woman, pretending that everything was okay. Tomorrow, I would drive it as someone else. Someone who bought mint chocolate chip ice cream at midnight and didn't have to apologize for it. Our building's parking garage was mostly empty. Mr. Kim's ancient Toyota, the shiny new Rivian belonging to the tech couple on the 4th floor. Ethan's spot sat vacant, his absence so routine that I'd stopped even noticing it months ago. I took the stairs instead of the elevator, needing to feel my body move, to prove to myself that I was still capable of forward motion. 4th floor. My keys felt heavy in my hand, weighted with the knowledge that I was about to walk into a space that was now mine to reshape. The apartment was dark just as I'd left it this morning. No lights left on for my return, no note on the counter, no sign that anyone had been waiting or worrying. The silence felt different, though. Before, it had been heavy and oppressive, filled with all the things we weren't saying. Now it felt expectant, like the quiet pause just before a song begins. I flipped on every single light switch, flooding the space with a brightness Ethan would have called wasteful. The living room sprang to life, and suddenly I could see everything with painful clarity. The charcoal gray couch I'd picked out while he was away at a conference. The abstract painting he'd said looked like someone sneezed paint, but that I'd bought anyway, hanging it while he was on a business trip. The bookshelf filled with my medical journals on one side and his unread business biographies on the other. Our interests were segregated, like a divorced couple's visitation schedule. My phone sat silent in my purse. I knew I should turn it on, face the avalanche of messages that was surely waiting for me. But instead, I opened the wine first, not even bothering with the fancy aerator Ethan insisted was essential. It tasted like rebellion and relief. I walked through each room, wine glass in hand, seeing our life together for what it truly was. The guest room he'd commandeered as his office, where he spent most of his evenings. The bathroom, with his collection of expensive colognes next to my drugstore shampoo. The bedroom, with the California king bed that had felt crowded and vast at the same time, even when he was traveling. Finally, standing on our small balcony overlooking the city, I pulled out my phone. My finger hovered over the power button. The moment I turned it on, this would all become real. The text, my reply, the end, it would all be there, preserved in digital permanence. I pressed the button. The screen flickered to life. It was exactly 10:47 p.m. For a few seconds, nothing happened. Then the avalanche began. Missed call from Ethan, missed call from Ethan, missed call from Ethan. A wall of texts followed. We need to talk about this. Clara, where are you? I know you're seeing these messages. This is insane. You can't just end our marriage over a text. Answer your phone. Please, I'm sorry. It's not what you think. Isabel means nothing. I'm coming home now. Where are you? This isn't like you. You're scaring me. Clara, please, I love you. I read that last one out loud to the Denver skyline. I love you. 3 words that would have meant the world to me this morning. Now they felt like counterfeit money, worthless and insulting. In between Ethan's frantic messages, I found 3 from my friend Maya. Ethan just called me. Are you okay? Clara, what is going on? He sounds completely frantic. Call me, no judgment, just worried. I typed back a quick reply. Better than okay. He chose to stay late with someone who understands him. I just made it permanent. Open that bottle of Merlot we've been saving. We're celebrating tomorrow. Her response was almost immediate. Holy crap, yes, wine, tissues, and bail money are on standby if needed. I laughed, a real, genuine laugh, standing alone on my balcony at nearly 11 o'clock at night. The city spread out below me, a tapestry of thousands of lights and thousands of windows, each one holding a life being lived. How many of them were in marriages like mine had been? How many were standing on their own balconies, reading desperate texts from a spouse who only realized they cared when it was already too late? My phone rang again. Ethan. I watched his contact photo fill the screen. A picture of us on a hike near Aspen, both of us squinting in the sun, his arm wrapped around me like he actually wanted it to be there. I let it ring until it went to voicemail, then deleted the message without listening. The wine tasted better with every sip. The city lights started to blur, whether from tears or alcohol, I couldn't be sure, and I didn't care. I raised my glass to Denver, to the strangers in their lit-up windows, to the kid with the gauge earrings at King's Supers, to Brenda who knew something was wrong, to Mrs. Navarro who fought until she couldn't anymore, to Maya who had bail money ready. To understanding ourselves, I said to no one and everyone, since that's the only thing we can really control. My phone lit up again. Another call from Ethan, number 54. I turned it face down on the balcony table and went inside to eat mint chocolate chip ice cream straight from the carton, finally understanding what freedom tasted like. The mint chocolate chip ice cream was a melted green soup by the time I finally went to bed. I left the carton on the coffee table, a small act of defiance against Ethan's strict rules about eating in the living room. My 6 a.m. alarm never went off because I hadn't slept a wink, but instead of feeling exhausted, I felt wired, electric, like my body had tapped into a new energy source, fueled by pure, unadulterated resolve. I called the hospital at 7 a.m., listening to the phone ring as I made coffee in the French press Ethan never used because it was too much effort. "Cardiac unit, this is Diana, it's Clara. I need to call in sick today." There was a pause. I never called in sick. In 3 years, I hadn't missed a single day, not through flu season, not through food poisoning, not even the time I threw out my back moving the high-end exercise bike Ethan insisted on buying and then never used. "Are you okay? You seemed different last night." "I'm perfect. I just have some personal business to take care of." "Oh?" Another pause. "Brenda mentioned you might need some time. Take care of yourself, okay?" I hung up and immediately dialed the bank. While waiting on hold, I slipped my wedding ring off my left hand and slid it onto my right. The pale indentation it left behind looked like a scar that would eventually fade. "First National, this is Cheryl. How can I help you? I need to separate a joint account." Cheryl's voice immediately shifted to that careful, gentle tone people reserve for delicate situations. "I can certainly help you with that. Will both account holders be present?" "No, just me." 20 minutes later, I was walking into the downtown branch. Cheryl turned out to be a woman in her 60s with kind eyes and immaculate nails. She didn't say a word about my wrinkled clothes from the day before, or the fact that I was dismantling my finances at 9 in the morning on a Thursday. "How would you like to divide the funds?" she asked, her fingers hovering over her keyboard. "Exactly 50-50. I'm not looking to be vindictive." She nodded and started typing. The numbers flashing on her screen were a stark reminder of how much money we'd accumulated while simultaneously saving on joy. No vacations because Ethan was always too swamped. No concerts because he found live music too chaotic. No nice dinners out because he preferred to network at corporate events I was never invited to. "Will you be needing new checks?" "Everything new," I said. "New account, new cards, new everything." She gave me a small, knowing smile, a fresh start, the freshest. By 10:30 a.m., Embertil, I was back in my apartment, armed with a new bank account, a book of temporary checks with only my name on them, and the phone number for Marco's lock key, which Cheryl had discreetly scribbled on a sticky note. "My nephew," she'd explained. "He's helped a lot of my friends through transitions." Marco arrived in a van with Fresh Start locks painted on the side, which felt a little too on the nose to be real, but there it was. Ms. Hayes? He was younger than I expected, maybe 30, with full tattoo sleeves and a tool belt that looked like it had seen some serious action. "That's me." He examined the existing locks with a professional air of detachment. "Boyfriend trouble? Husband trouble." "Ah. Soon-to-be ex-husband trouble? That's the one." He started unpacking his tools. "You'd be surprised how many of my calls are on Thursdays. Something about Thursdays just makes people realize they deserve better." While he worked, he told me stories. The woman who changed her locks after finding her husband's active dating profile. The guy who discovered his wife's affair through their shared Hulu account. The couple who had him change the locks on each other on the same day and ended up meeting in the hallway to argue about who got to keep the cat. "You seem pretty calm about all this," he observed as he installed a third deadbolt. "I work in a cardiac unit. Once you've restarted someone's heart with your own 2 hands, changing a few locks doesn't seem all that dramatic." Fair point. He tested the new key, and the lock clicked into place with a deeply satisfying finality. "You want all the copies?" "Every last one." He handed me 4 shiny new keys on a ring. "These locks are pick-proof, bump-proof, and X-proof. That last one isn't an official industry term, but it really should be. After Marco left, I stood in the middle of my apartment, my new keys clutched in my hand, surveying everything that needed to be done. Ethan's presence was everywhere, and yet he was nowhere. His things were here, but when was the last time he had truly been present? I started with his office, the stacks of investment magazines he subscribed to but never opened, the corporate awards that all looked identical, the expensive standing desk he'd insisted on buying and then never actually used, preferring to work from the couch or our bed. Each item went into a cardboard box I'd gotten from the liquor store. At least their previous contents were honest about their purpose. His collection of watches came next, 6 of them, each one more expensive than the last, each one worn maybe twice. The Rolex his father had given him that he claimed was too formal, the smartwatch that was too casual, the vintage Omega he'd bought himself to celebrate a promotion, worn once to show it off at a party and then abandoned in its box. In the bedroom, his suits hung like expensive ghosts. I folded each one carefully, the way we were taught to handle a deceased patient's belongings, with respect for what they were, not for what they represented. His ties, all color-coordinated and barely touched. His shoes, polished and lined up like soldiers who had never seen a day of battle. The bathroom took the longest. His elaborate skincare routine cost more than my monthly student loan payment. The cologne bottles were arranged by season, even though he always wore the same one. The electric toothbrush he'd upgraded 3 times in 2 years, always searching for the perfect clean for his perfect smile. I found things I'd forgotten even existed. The anniversary card I'd given him last year, still sealed in its envelope. A photo from our honeymoon tucked behind a bottle of his hair gel. The watch I had saved for months to buy him for his 30th birthday, still in its original box, the price tag still on. By 2 o'clock, 11 boxes were lined up by the front door, a cardboard monument to a marriage that had been over long before last night. I had just been the only one still trying to resuscitate it. My phone buzzed. It was the doorman's extension. Ms. Hayes. Jorge's voice was professionally neutral, but I could hear the question mark in his tone. Mr. Collins is down here. He says his key fob seems to be malfunctioning. I could hear Ethan's voice in the background, sharp and laced with frustration. It's not malfunctioning. Something is wrong with your system. The system is working perfectly, Jorge, I said calmly. His access has been revoked. All of his belongings are packed in boxes by the door. Could you please help him load them into a cab? There was a beat of silence. Of course, Ms. Hayes. The name felt right. Oh, and Jorge, it's Ms. Hayes permanently now. Understood, Ms. Hayes. I'll make a note in the system. I hung up and stood there, staring at the boxes by the door. Through the intercom, I could hear the faint ding of the elevator arriving, Jorge's professional murmur, and then Ethan's voice rising in pitch and volume. My phone rang immediately. Clara, what the hell is this? His voice crackled through the speaker, a chaotic mix of fury and something that sounded almost like fear. Hello, Ethan. I walked into the kitchen, needing something to do with my hands. I started washing the coffee mug from this morning, the French press he'd never bothered to learn how to use. The locks? The boxes? Are you having some kind of breakdown? No, I said, drying the mug with meticulous care. I'm having a breakthrough. There's a difference. This is insane. You're being completely irrational, all over one stupid text. I placed the mug in the cabinet, aligning it perfectly with the others. It wasn't one text, Ethan. It was one honest text, after years and years of dishonest everything else. I don't even know what that means. It means you finally told me the truth. You found someone who understands you. Isabel, right? From your firm. Silence. Then, a defensive tone. Isabel is a colleague. We work on projects together. Projects, I laughed, but the sound was bitter. Is that what we're calling it these days? Nothing happened. Nothing happened yet. But you wanted it to. You've been wanting it to for months. Every time you mentioned her brilliant ideas, her innovative strategies, how she gets your vision. You've been having an emotional affair, Ethan, whether you ever touched her or not. That's not, you're twisting things. No, I'm clarifying things. You said you found someone who understands you. Present tense, found, not might find or could find. You already found her. I'm just stepping aside so you can go pursue that understanding, without me in your way. I could hear him breathing heavily on the other end of the line. In the background, I heard the thud of a box being loaded into the elevator. Another piece of our marriage being carted away. Where am I supposed to go? His voice had shrunk, the anger deflating into a pathetic whine. To Isabel's, your brother's? That extended stay hotel you used for all those client emergencies? I don't know, Ethan. And for the first time, it's not my problem to solve. You're my wife. I was your wife. Now I'm just the woman who is respecting your stated need to be understood by someone else. He hung up. 20 seconds later, he called back. We need to talk about this in person. No, we don't. You can't just end 12 years over. You ended it, Ethan. I'm just handling the logistics. This time when he hung up, he didn't call back right away. I stood in my quiet, sunlit kitchen. The afternoon light streamed through the windows he'd always wanted to cover with blackout curtains. The peace felt surreal, like the eerie calm after a tornado when you're just taking stock of what's still standing. At midnight, my phone buzzed. It wasn't Ethan this time. It was an unknown number with a long wall of text. Hi, Clara. This is Isabel from Ethan's firm. I just want you to know that nothing physical has ever happened between us. We've had some deep conversations about work and life, but I would never cross that line with a married man. There's been an emotional connection, yes, and maybe some feelings developed that shouldn't have, but I swear we haven't acted on anything. Ethan is devoted to his work. He talks about you all the time. These late nights have just been about the Morrison project. Mostly. Okay, sometimes we talked about other things, personal things. But that's normal for colleagues who spend a lot of time together. I think you're misunderstanding our professional chemistry. Can we please talk, woman to woman? I never meant for any of this to happen. I read the message 3 times. Each pass revealed more than she intended. Nothing physical meant they had definitely thought about it. Feelings developed confirmed what I already knew. Talks about you all the time was almost certainly past tense and probably involved a lot of complaining. Professional chemistry was just a corporate buzzword for an emotional affair. I didn't reply. The next morning, my phone rang at 7:30. Ethan's mother, Eleanor, calling from her ritzy retirement community in Scottsdale that cost more than most people's mortgages. Clara, sweetheart, what is this nonsense I'm hearing? Good morning, Eleanor. Ethan called me at midnight, hysterical. He says you've locked him out, changed the bank accounts. This is not how a marriage works, Clara. I almost laughed. Eleanor, on her 3rd husband, was lecturing me on how marriage works. Ethan found someone who understands him better? I said evenly. I'm just respecting his choice. Oh, men say stupid things when they're stressed. You can't take every little word literally. Actually, I can, and I am. You're giving up so easily, after everything you two have built together. What did we build, Eleanor? Really? A life where he works 18-hour days and I eat dinner by myself? Where he spends more time with Isabel from the office than with me? That's not a marriage. That's just 2 people sharing an address. Her voice cracked just a little. But who's going to take care of him? He's 39 years old. He makes over $200,000 a year. I think he'll manage to figure it out. But his anxiety, are not my responsibility anymore. She hung up on me, which seemed to be a family tradition at this point. 2 hours later, Maya arrived with what she called her emergency divorce kit. 2 bottles of good wine, fancy chocolate, a box of tissues, and her iPad preloaded with apartment listings. She found me on a stepladder, painting the main living room wall a bold shade of teal. Okay, this is not what I was expecting, she said, setting down her supplies. What did you expect? Me crying in bed? Wallowing? Maybe some therapeutic plate smashing? I did my crying in increments over the past year, I told her. Every time he chose work over us, every time he brought up Isabel, every single time I ate dinner alone. I'm all cried out. She watched me paint, making steady, even strokes, covering up the bland beige that Ethan had insisted was calming. You know what? She said finally. I never liked him. I almost dropped the paint roller. What? He was so condescending. Remember at your birthday dinner when he corrected the waiter on the pronunciation of the wine? Or that time at the Christmas party when he tried to explain your own job to you? He was exhausting to be around. We all thought it, but you just seemed so, I don't know. Committed to making it work. Committed to being blind, you mean? No. Committed to your vows. There's a difference between giving up and knowing when it's time to stop. You knew when to stop. She helped me finish the wall. By the end, we were both splattered with little drops of teal paint that looked like celebratory confetti. The color completely transformed the room. It made it feel warm where it had been cold, alive where it had been sterile. He's going to come back, you know, Maya said as she washed the paint off her hands. Men like Ethan always do. The minute Isabel realizes he's actually available, she'll get scared and run. The minute he has to do his own laundry and cooking and emotional labor, he'll come crawling back. Maybe, I said, stepping back to admire our work. But I won't be here. Not in the way he needs me to be. Maya left that evening after helping me rearrange the furniture, creating a space that finally, truly felt like it was mine. I was admiring the now dry and vibrant teal wall when the doorbell rang at 8:30. Through the peephole, I saw Ethan's brother, Leo, looking like he'd rather be anywhere else on Earth. Leo, I said, opening the door but not moving aside to let him in. Let me guess, emergency family intervention. He shifted his messenger bag, the same one he'd been carrying since college. Can I come in? I flew down from Boulder. You flew down from Boulder for Ethan, not for me. Clara, please. Just hear me out. Against my better judgment, I let him in. He stopped dead in his tracks when he saw the teal wall, the rearranged furniture, the conspicuous absence of all of Ethan's things. Wow, you've already... He trailed off, sitting gingerly on my new throw pillows as if they might be rigged to explode. Coffee? I asked, moving toward the kitchen. Please. I made it in the French press using the cheerful yellow mugs Ethan had banished to the back of the cabinet. Leo pulled out his laptop, and I had to bite my lip to keep from laughing. Did you seriously make a PowerPoint presentation? His ears turned bright red. I'm an analyst. It's how I process information. He opened a presentation titled, Financial and Emotional Implications of Marital Dissolution. Slide 1 showed divorce rate statistics. Slide 2 was a breakdown of their shared assets. By slide 5, which covered the average cost of divorce proceedings in Colorado, I was struggling not to smile. Leo, this is very thorough, but he's been calling me at 2 a.m, he blurted out, abandoning his slides. Every night since Thursday, crying. Ethan doesn't cry. He didn't cry when our dad died. He didn't cry when his first startup failed. But now he's sobbing on my voicemail at 2 a.m. about the proper way to use an espresso machine. He's grieving the idea of me, not the reality of me. There's a difference. He says he messed up, that Isabel was just a symptom, not the disease. I know. Leo slowly closed his laptop. You seem really okay with all of this. I am really okay with this. That's what's worrying everyone, isn't it? The fact that I'm not falling apart on schedule. He sipped his coffee from the cheerful yellow mug, looking deeply uncomfortable. Mom's flying in tomorrow. Your mom already called. I handled it. No, your mom. She called me when she couldn't get a hold of you. My stomach sank. Of course she had. The next morning I was back at work trying to focus on medication rounds when Brenda pulled me aside. You have a visitor in the main lobby. My mother would have come straight to the apartment. This was someone else. I walked down to find Isabel, perched precariously on the edge of one of the waiting room chairs, her designer heels tapping a nervous rhythm on the linoleum floor. She looked smaller here, out of place among the worried families and the harsh hospital lighting. "I need 5 minutes," she said, standing up as soon as she saw me. "I'm working. Please. I know I have no right to ask, but please." I led her to the hospital cafeteria, buying myself a coffee I didn't want just to have something to do with my hands. She sat across from me and launched into what was clearly a well-rehearsed speech. "I'm not that kind of woman," she began. "What kind is that?" I asked. "The kind who breaks up a marriage." "You didn't break up anything that wasn't already broken." Her carefully constructed composure cracked a little. "Nothing physical happened. You said that in your text. But emotional things happened. Conversations. A connection." She twisted the expensive rings on her fingers. I thought he was unhappy. He just seemed so lost. He was lost. Lost in his own ego. Lost in his desperate need to be admired. And you provided that for him. I didn't mean for Isabel, what did you honestly think was going to happen? Did you think you could have these deep emotional conversations forever without any consequences? That I would just continue to exist quietly in the background while the two of you connected over your revolutionary business strategies? She flinched. "He said you two were growing apart." "We were, because he was growing toward you. I told him multiple times that he should work on his marriage." "Was that before or after the late-night talks about your shared vision?" She stood up abruptly. "I wanted you to know that I'm transferring to our Chicago office, running away, starting fresh, just like you are." She paused at the cafeteria entrance. "Can I ask you something? Would you take him back?" "No, even if he changed. He'd be changing for the wrong reasons. To get me back, not to actually be a better person, there's a difference." She left, her heels clicking down the hallway like a countdown timer. I finished my unwanted coffee and went back to my patients, people whose hearts actually wanted to be saved. That afternoon, my phone rang. It was an unknown number. "Ms. Hayes, this is Dr. Patricia Reeves. Your husband, Ethan, booked an emergency couples counseling session for tomorrow at 2 o'clock. We're not a couple anymore, Dr. Reeves." "Oh," he seemed quite urgent about it. "He mentioned you were having a temporary disagreement." "It's not temporary. We're getting a divorce." "I see." Her professional composure slipped for a second. "May I be candid?" He sounded quite dysregulated when he called. Perhaps individual therapy would be more beneficial for him at this time. "That's an excellent suggestion. You should tell him that." "I will." "Miss Hayes, you sound remarkably centered. Are you seeing someone for support?" "Yes," I said. "Myself. For the first time in years." I had just gotten home from my shift when my mother's car pulled up outside. I watched from the window as she unloaded 2 casserole dishes and a look of judgment I could see from 4 stories up. She let herself in with her spare key, stopping short when she saw the teal wall. "Clara Marie Hayes, what have you done?" "Redecorated." She set down the casseroles and began her inspection, pointing at the empty spaces. "Where's the espresso machine?" Ethan took it. "The smart TV?" Also Ethan. "The sound system?" I pulled out my phone and showed her our bank statements from the last 3 years. 87% of our joint big-ticket purchases had been paid for by me. He had contributed 13%, mostly for things that had his name on them or that would impress his colleagues. She studied the numbers, her finger tracing the transactions. "You paid for your own anniversary presents?" "Usually. He'd forget and then he'd reimburse me later." "Sometimes." She sat down heavily on my rearranged couch. "Fort Collins is only an hour's drive. You couldn't have called me yourself." "To say what? That I finally stood up for myself? That I'm done pretending everything is fine? To say you needed your mother." But I didn't. That's what no one seems to understand. I don't need to be saved. I don't need an intervention. I don't need casseroles. I just need people to trust that I know what I'm doing. She looked around the apartment, perhaps seeing it for the first time as mine instead of ours. "The teal is nice," she admitted quietly. "It really brings out the light." Mom stayed for dinner. We ate her casserole in a comfortable silence. She left the second one in my freezer, kissed my forehead like I was 12 again, and drove back to Fort Collins without trying to fix anything else. That night, I slept better than I had in months. 3 weeks passed in a whirlwind of work shifts and small, quiet freedoms. I bought new curtains Ethan would have hated. I started reading for pleasure again. I remembered what my own laugh sounded like. Then Brenda cornered me during a shift change with that look she gets when she has gossip that's too good to keep to herself. So, "I saw your ex last night," she said, pretending to be busy organizing a stack of already organized charts. "Oh?" At that pretentious wine bar on Larimer Square, with a brunette who looked like she would rather be getting a root canal. Isabel. Had to be. He was leaning in, trying to talk to her, and she was just scrolling on her phone. Didn't even look up when he ordered their drinks. Brenda's eyes sparkled with a sense of vindication. Karma is a beautiful thing, isn't it? I waited for a wave of satisfaction to hit me. Instead, I just felt a surprising pang of sadness. Not for us, not for what we'd lost, but for Ethan. For the man who was so terrified of being ordinary that he had torched everything real in his life in pursuit of something that only glittered from a distance. "That's just sad," I said. Brenda looked surprised. "You're not happy about it? Why would I be happy watching someone I once loved be miserable, even if he earned it?" That afternoon, I decided to tackle the hall closet, the last frontier of Ethan's lingering presence. Tucked behind a row of winter coats I never wore, I found a box I'd completely forgotten about. It held his old journals from when we first started dating, a few ties he'd never worn, and at the very bottom, a leather-bound notebook I didn't recognize. I shouldn't have opened it, but I did. The entries were from 7 years ago, right after he got his first big promotion. His handwriting, usually so neat and precise, was frantic and messy in places. "Clara saved someone's life today. Literally restarted their heart with her hands. I sold some software to people who don't need it. How am I supposed to compete with that?" Another entry read, "She never makes me feel small, but I feel small next to her. She's so steady, so sure of herself. What happens when she finally realizes she married down?" And then there was the one that made my breath catch in my throat. "I love her so much it terrifies me. What if she figures out I'm just ordinary? What if she leaves me? Maybe if I leave her first, emotionally it won't hurt as much when she finally goes." I sat on the floor of the closet, surrounded by clothes I needed to donate and old tax receipts, and it all finally clicked into place. Ethan hadn't fallen out of love with me. He had fallen out of love with himself. And instead of working on that, he had sought validation from someone who didn't know him well enough to see past his carefully constructed performance. Isabel saw the successful, confident analyst. I saw the man who had panic attacks before big client presentations. Isabel saw his ambition. I saw the little boy who was still desperately seeking his mother's approval at the age of 39. She understood his facade. I understood his foundation, and that terrified him more than the thought of losing me. My phone buzzed. An unknown number, but the message preview showed the name of a law firm. A courier arrived an hour later with a manila envelope that felt much heavier than it actually was. Inside were divorce papers with Ethan's signature already in place. The note from his lawyer was brief. "Mr. Collins wishes to expedite these proceedings. He has agreed to all of your terms." All my terms. I hadn't even submitted any terms yet. I spread the papers out on my kitchen table, the same table where we had shared 12 years of morning coffee. His signature looked shaky, nothing like his usual precise script. He'd given me everything. The apartment, the savings, even things I hadn't asked for. It felt like reading a suicide note written in legalese. I signed my name with the same steady hand I used to sign death certificates at work. Another ending documented, witnessed, and filed away. The ink dried quickly, dark blue against the white paper, official and irreversible. 2 days later, I ran into Liam at the grocery store. Ethan's best friend since college, the one who had been his best man, the one who had sworn to me at our wedding that Ethan would always be good to me. He was buying frozen pizzas and a case of beer, the universal shopping list of a man housing a heartbroken friend, Clara. He looked like he'd rather be anywhere else. "Hi, Liam." We stood there awkwardly between the frozen vegetables and the ice cream, neither of us knowing how to navigate this new, uncomfortable territory. "He's staying with me," he said finally, "on my couch. That's good. He shouldn't be alone." Liam let out a bitter laugh. Isabel kicked him out. Well, not kicked him out since they weren't actually living together, but she told him she needs space to process. Funny how that works, huh? I didn't say anything. What was there to say? "He cries. You know," Liam continued, as if he needed to confess this to someone, "every night. Just looking at your wedding photos on his phone. He keeps saying he destroyed everything for someone who doesn't even like him that much. She liked the idea of him, and he liked the idea of being understood without ever having to actually be vulnerable." Liam shifted his basket of bachelor food. He knows it's too late. He knows he can't fix this. But Clara, I've never seen him like this. It's like he finally woke up and realized what he had. Sometimes people need to lose something to understand its value. That's cold. "No," I said, selecting a pint of the good ice cream, the kind Ethan always said was too expensive. That's honest. And honesty is what was missing all along. Liam studied me for a moment. "You look good. Happy. I'm getting there. He won't bother you." I made him promise. "But he wanted me to tell you, if I saw you, that he's sorry. Really, truly sorry. Not expecting anything sorry, just sorry." I nodded, paid for my ice cream, and left Liam standing there with his frozen pizzas and the heavy weight of his friend's regret. That night, I sat on my balcony with the good ice cream and my phone. I pulled up our wedding photos, the ones I had hidden away in a folder months ago. We looked so young, so certain. Ethan's smile reached his eyes in a way I hadn't seen in years, and I was looking at him like he had hung the moon. Maybe he had, once, before he got scared of the heights and decided to climb back down. I deleted the folder, not out of anger, but out of a sense of kindness to both of us. Some things just needed to stay buried so that new things could have a chance to grow. The empty photo folder stared back at me from my phone screen. Where 12 years of memories had lived, there was now just blank space. I closed the app and set the phone aside, finishing my ice cream as the lights of Denver twinkled below, like a million tiny promises I was finally ready to make to myself. 6 months later, I was standing on a different rooftop, a champagne flute in my hand. The same city spread out beneath me, but everything else had been transformed. Maya and Brenda had insisted on celebrating my promotion to head of the cardiac unit at the very same spot where Ethan had proposed 11 years ago. The irony was not lost on any of us. To Clara, Maya said, raising her glass, who saved her own heart with the same precision she saves everyone else's. To not needing anyone else to understand us, Brenda added, her voice carrying the weight of her own divorce 3 years prior. To choosing ourselves, I said, and we clinked our glasses together as the sun set over the city. The rooftop bar had been renovated since Ethan's proposal. New furniture, new lighting, even a new name. But the view was still the same. The Rockies in the distance, the South Platte River cutting through downtown, the bridges lit up like strands of jewelry. I remembered standing in this exact spot at 24 years old, saying yes to a man who had promised me forever. Now, at 36, I was saying yes to myself. "You know what the best part is?" Brenda said after her second glass. "You look 10 years younger. I'm not even exaggerating. It's like you shed a whole decade of exhaustion along with those divorce papers." She wasn't wrong. My face had changed. The permanent furrow between my eyebrows had smoothed out. The tight, thin line of my mouth had softened. I'd started wearing lipstick again, a bright coral shade that matched the accent wall in my old apartment. "Jorge said the same thing," I said, thinking of the doorman who had helped me move the previous week. I'd found a one-bedroom apartment just 6 blocks from the hospital. It was smaller than the place I'd shared with Ethan, but it was flooded with natural light. I'd painted one wall a calming sage green, another a dusty rose. Plants crowded every windowsill, pothos and snake plants and a massive monstera that was already outgrowing its corner. The furniture was all mine, chosen for comfort rather than for how impressive it looked. Jorge had helped me carry boxes, his professional discretion finally cracking when he saw how different I looked. "Ms. Hayes, forgive me for saying so, but you're glowing," he'd said, setting down a box of books. Then, more quietly, "Mr. Collins still drives by sometimes, parks across the street and just looks up at the old apartment. I don't think he knows you moved." "Let him look," I'd said, arranging my grandmother's china in my new kitchen cabinets. "He's looking for someone who doesn't exist anymore." 2 weeks into living in my new space, on what would have been our 11th anniversary, my phone buzzed with a text from Ethan. I saw the preview. I understand now. What I was really looking for was... I took a screenshot of it without reading the rest and sent it to my group chat with Maya and Brenda. Maya responded immediately with a string of laughing emojis. Brenda wrote back, "Karma's Employee of the Month," right there. I archived the message, unread. Some words just come too late to matter. It's like doing CPR on a patient who's been gone for too long. You can go through the motions, but you can't bring back what has already moved on. That night, I was working a shift in the cardiac unit I now ran. The same fluorescent lights hummed overhead, the same vending machine stood guard in the break room, but everything felt different when you were building something instead of running away from something. I was updating charts when I noticed her. A new nurse, Sarah, sitting by herself in the break room at midnight, staring at her phone with that all too familiar look of someone pretending everything is fine. "Long night?" I asked, grabbing a coffee. She startled, quickly turning her phone screen dark. "Oh, Dr. Hayes, yes, Mr. Peterson in 302 is being difficult. That's not what's making you look like that." She let out a hollow laugh. "My husband's working late again, 3rd time this week. He says he's swamped with a big project, but your gut is telling you otherwise." Her eyes filled with tears that she quickly blinked away. "I'm just being paranoid." I sat down across from her, remembering my own midnight vigils in this very room. "Can I tell you something? The night my marriage ended, I was standing right where you are. My ex-husband sent me a text saying he'd found someone who understood him better. Do you know what I did? What? I told him to stay with her. It was the best decision I ever made." Sarah's eyes widened. "You just ended it?" That simply? Ending it was the simple part. The 12 years of pretending that led up to it, that was the hard part. The working late, the growing distance, the feeling like you're going crazy for noticing what everyone else is pretending not to see. That's the real killer. But what if I'm wrong? What if he really is just working? I leaned back, studying her tired, hopeful face. Then having an honest conversation won't hurt anything. But in my experience, when your gut screams this loud, it's usually right. The real question is, do you want to spend the next few years gathering evidence, or do you want to trust yourself right now? She sat with that for a long moment. Were you scared when you ended it? Terrified? But you know what scared me more? The thought of spending another 12 years waiting for someone to see me while I slowly disappeared. Understanding yourself, Sarah, is more important than being understood by someone else. And sometimes when someone tells you not to call them, literally or figuratively, the best response is to simply say, "Okay, I won't." Sarah nodded slowly, a subtle shift occurring in her expression. My mom always said that not all endings are failures. Your mom's right. Some endings are victories disguised as losses. Sometimes the greatest revenge is just choosing to thrive. I stood up, my coffee now cold but my sense of purpose warm. Whatever you decide, just remember you are allowed to choose yourself. It's not selfish. It's necessary. Walking back out onto the floor, I passed the rows of cardiac monitors, each one tracing a heart's unique rhythm. Some were steady, some were struggling, but all of them were fighting to keep going, just like us. The only difference was that human hearts could choose their own rhythm once they stopped letting someone else set the pace. I thought about Ethan probably lying awake somewhere, finally understanding what he'd lost. About Isabel, discovering that understanding someone's ambition isn't the same as knowing their soul. About Jorge, watching a man return to stare at empty windows. About my mother, finally seeing her daughter bloom on her own terms. But mostly, I thought about myself. The woman who didn't fall apart when her marriage ended with 19 words. The woman who signed her own divorce papers with the same steady hand she used to save lives. The woman who painted her walls impossible colors and bought the good ice cream and learned that being alone wasn't lonely when you actually liked your own company. I caught my reflection in the dark glass of the medication room. My coral lipstick was still perfect after an 8-hour shift. My eyes were clear and focused. And there was the ghost of a smile on my face that had become more or less permanent these past few months. This was what thriving looked like, not grand gestures or dramatic acts of revenge, just a woman who had finally stopped waiting for someone else to understand her and had decided to understand herself instead. And that understanding, that was worth more than 54 missed calls, more than midnight apologies, more than 12 years of trying to be someone's everything while slowly becoming nothing. The greatest revenge, I had finally learned, wasn't making them sorry. It was making yourself whole. If this story of standing up for yourself had you cheering for Clara, hit that like button right now. My favorite part was when she typed, "Fine, stay with her. Don't bother coming home with surgeon steady hands." What was your most satisfying moment? Drop it in the comments below. Don't miss out on more empowering stories just like this one. Make sure you subscribe and hit that notification bell so you never miss an upload. End of story.